It's just 3 days now until the US election. It's been a long, long race, hasn't it? And the way the Americans choose a president is hardly a straightforward process. So we've brought in Dr. David Smith, an expert on American politics at the University of Sydney, to give us viewers a guide into how it all works. It seems like a very long, involved process, but let's break it down, David. It's much different from our system. How does the Electoral College process work over there?
So in the Electoral College, each state gets a certain number of votes based on the size of its population. The winner of the election within each state gets all of the votes for that state. So somewhere like California has 55 states out of the 538. The winner of that state will get them all. California is a very safe state for Barack Obama. Most of the states in the US are actually safe for one candidate or another. They're a bit like safe electoral seats in Australia. Really, the contest is over a handful of swing states.
The so-called battleground states. But where do things stand right at the moment for Obama and Romney?
Where they stand right at the moment can be a little bit confusing, because if you just look at a national poll, it looks absolutely neck and neck. It looks like a total dead heat.
Sure.
But when you actually start to look at the states themselves, you see that it's not quite as close as it looks, because Barack Obama seems to have a distinct advantage in a lot of the states that could swing either way.
Wendy's been telling us in the news about how frantically they're covering the battleground states in the last couple of days before the election. A very busy process for them, the final run to the polls. Talk us through this battleground concept.
So in states like Ohio, Florida, Virginia, New Hampshire, Colorado, this is where all of the resources of the campaigns are being poured into. And we can see Ohio there. I've got friends who live in Ohio who told me that on Friday alone, they had 12 pieces of campaign literature in the mail. In Columbus, which is the capital of Ohio, recently, out of 22 ads, 20 of them in a news segment were electoral ads. So there's just enormous saturation campaigning going on here, because it's these states where the election is actually going to be decided.
And it's really only a small portion of the population that will turn out and decide this whole process, isn't it? What should we be watching for on Tuesday? What are the telltale markers?
What we should particularly be watching for is the big swing states, so Florida, Virginia and Ohio. Between them, these states will probably determine the election. Now, this electoral map looks a bit misleading because you can see a lot of red on it, which is the Republican colour, the pro-Romney colour.
Yeah.
But because of the population density on the coasts, actually Obama is ahead. As we just saw before, basically Obama has 243 votes locked up, whereas Romney only has 206. So these, the three big swing states, Ohio, Virginia and Florida, basically Romney needs to win all three of them to have a chance at winning the election. Obama really only needs to win one.
Yeah.
And that's why there's been so much focus on Ohio, because Obama seems to have a small but pretty resilient lead there of somewhere between 2 and 3%.
So it's likely that Obama will get another term, according to you. So what do you think all this means for Australia?
It's really difficult to tell what an election means for Australia until the president is actually in power and we see how they react to a crisis. No one would ever have guessed that George W. Bush in 2000, who campaigned for a more humble foreign policy, who wanted less American military intervention in the world, would be the most aggressive president since Vietnam. So it's really hard to tell exactly how this election could affect us.
So I'll be watching Dunedin and Americane go around in the Melbourne Cup, and you'll be doing this on Tuesday.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Thanks for taking us through it step by step, David.
My pleasure.
Cheers. Sarah?
It's going to be a big day on Tuesday. Thanks, Cam.